everyone. Welcome back to Effing with the Ineffable. I'm Zoe.
I'm Smokey Piggleton, aka Will.
It's funny, my daughter was just telling my dad that we have new friends from Poland.
Yeah.
And my friend, so she grew up in Poland. She lived there until she was like 25 or something, and then
Wow.
Actually, maybe even later than that. And then she moved to England, and she just moved here 2 years ago, I think. But anyway, it came up in conversation because we're pretty good friends now. We have had a couple conversations, and
she speaks English really well.
Yeah, totally well. She was very confused that you're called Smokey Piggleton. She was like, "What's your dad's nickname?" I was like, "I don't even."
I think that confuses a lot of people.
I was like, "I can't even explain it. I don't know." Like
that's my nom de guerre or my nom de pod or something. So my stage name.
As soon as you said Smokey Piggleton, it made me think of when she was like, "What's his name?" And I was like, "I don't even want to explain it." But anyway. All you need to know is that that's my dad's nickname, and that's
my
he gave himself.
Nickname. That's what I call myself. That's fine.
Which is fine. All right. So, Smokey Piggleton, how are you doing? How's life?
Life is good. Yesterday was Ash Wednesday, the beginning of Lent, and pretty much fasted and definitely abstained from everything and didn't play Red Dead Redemption, and it was a good day.
Good.
And, part of my Lenten program, you know how we were talking about prayer, I've decided that I'm going to catch up on the Bible in a year.
Nice.
And I did already like the first 15 or something.
Oh wow.
So I was figuring I was going to do a few more today, but the weather kept me from going to work. So I've got to actually do things.
So you have been listening
instead of watching podcasts.
You've been listening to them at work?
Yeah.
Nice. Any update on when you're going to be able to see people at work?
No updates yet. I gonna have my second COVID shot next Wednesday, so that'll put me up to 95% protection, 95% immunized.
Yeah. Well, then hopefully maybe you'll be able to see people. I don't know if their rules going to change.
I don't know.
It's crazy that you've been working there for like 2 months now, and
it's not just me that would be the vector of transmission. They would be potentially cross infecting one another. So until there's a significant decrease in the transmission among the offenders, it's probably not going to happen. So
that's just like sad for them. Like they aren't getting.
A few of them have asked. I don't really know any of the people who are involved in the program because obviously I haven't met them yet. But sometimes we pass some of the offenders when they're walking by, and they engage some of the other therapists, and it's like, hey, when are we going to start meeting again? It's like, we don't know. As soon as you guys stop getting COVID.
That's sad.
Stop getting COVID.
Yeah.
Knock it off.
Yeah, it's just such a hard situation. I got chastised by somebody who works in our building yesterday because I wasn't wearing a mask. Because I get really mad. Like, I don't want to wear a mask to walk from my door to the front door. But like the rule is you have to wear a mask, which I understand. And I was like really mad about it. I was so angry. And then I went to
Just follow the rules.
I think that here's what makes me mad about it.
It doesn't have to make sense. You just have to obey.
I know that. I understand that. But it makes me mad because I actually think masks do much more harm than good. And so when people make these rules to wear masks, it's like, you're not doing it because it's a justified rule. You're doing it because you want to seem like you care about other people and you want to force that down my throat. It's the same thing that the government does all the time. So it makes me really mad. But I was sitting, so
We're
listen,
back to that. We're back.
I understand.
Back to the government sucks, and they overreach.
Yeah, I mean, like the government is part of the problem of like making people wear masks and stuff. So anyway, I went to Ash Wednesday Mass at 5 p.m., which was kind of a rough time because
Did they smudge you, or did they
sprinkle
sprinkled ashes? Huh?
Yeah. What did you do? What did you get? Did you go?
I didn't go.
Oh, yeah. They announced the week before that they were going to sprinkle everyone.
Last night I had a talk with a guy about solar power, and I'm also trying to sell some of the cars. So a family came by and was looking at the van.
Nice.
Can you imagine if somebody's interested in that van?
It runs.
It runs. That's the best. That's the best that can be said.
I mean, you've had like some issues with the car. Well, yeah, and you were stranded in South Carolina or whatever that one time. I mean,
yeah, but that got fixed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got a new radiator. It's actually mechanically pretty sound, but holy cow, it's like falling apart.
Yeah, but I mean, some people,
the window doesn't roll down.
Yeah.
You know.
Some people can't afford to be picky.
I know. That's why Mom was like, "You're overcharging them. You should be ashamed of yourself." It's like the blue book tells me where to start.
I mean, you're not a charity, but you also shouldn't gouge them. I mean, you want to be fair.
Mom will probably make me end up giving this car away. Which would be fine. We could do that.
So anyway, I went to 5 p.m. Mass last night, and I was so mad because it wasn't even that they were enforcing the rule. It was that the lady was like extremely rude about it. And like, part of the reason I don't wear a mask is because I genuinely have a hard time breathing in masks. And it's like, if I'm literally just walking from my door to the front door, I don't really want to like, I understand it's like, yeah, okay, you can't like take 5 seconds to put a mask on to save other people. It would only be saving other people if I'm sick. I'm not sick. I don't have COVID. So me wearing a mask does nothing except virtue signal that I somehow care about other people. The whole thing makes me mad. But anyway, I was at Mass and I was angry and I was like,
so we don't get upset about it.
Listen, let me finish my story. I was sitting at Mass and I was like, you know what? There are people who are really actually suffering in the world for no reason. There's a lot of people who suffer for no reason in the world. And I was like, for Lent, I'm going to just wear my mask and not be mad about it and give it up. Every time I get mad about it, I'm just going to give it up for the people who actually suffer needlessly in the world. Because if that's like the worst suffering, and I'm not saying that it's like suffering. I'm just saying like the injustice and the stupidity of it all makes me very angry. But I'm like, I'm just going to do it. And I'm just going to give it up for the people.
I don't know where you are in the Bible, but there's a part in the Bible where it says, I think it's in Peter, the letter from Peter or something like that, where it says, even if you've had sufferings, you haven't really shed blood. So get over yourself.
I'm not saying I'm suffering.
That's what St. Peter said. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
That's what St. Peter said.
And I'm not saying I'm suffering. What I am saying is that I do think masks are overall harmful. I think it's wrong for people to make these blanket rules, especially for kids. I think for kids it's the worst. And I think that it sends a message to children that we need to fear other people and that other people should always be looked on as potential hazards to me. And I think that that's a really sick mindset. And I think that whole thing makes me very mad. It's not just like wearing a mask to stop spreading an illness. If it was just that, of course I'd be for that. It's like the psychological significance of all that stuff, which that's the stuff that really scares me and makes me mad and makes me think I don't know if this is ever going to end, because what's the incentive for local governments and these like, what's the incentive for my building to ever say you don't have to wear a mask anymore unless people stand up to the rule and don't do it?
Right.
And it's not just me, by the way. About half the people in my building don't wear a mask. So it's not just me. And that's why my husband was like, man, that lady has a hard job of trying to get people to wear masks, because about half the people in our building just don't wear masks. And
she's the mask enforcer?
I don't think, I mean, she's like the resident manager or something. I don't think her job is.
She's the mask Nazi?
She's the mask Nazi. And it's like, yeah, I was really mad at like the way she approached
No access for you. You go.
I was mad at like the way she approached me and like the tone she had about it, of being like, she didn't act like.
She's probably pretty frustrated.
Well, and there are people who genuinely can't wear masks, who have like I have a hard time breathing in a mask, but I don't have like a actual health issue that would cause me to not have to wear a mask. But there are people like that.
Want me to write you a doctor's note?
Sure. No, so anyway, I don't want to like.
Zoe's dad says she doesn't have to wear a mask. Signed, Zoe's dad.
Yeah, I was really mad. I was like, I'm gonna write cover your ears if you have sensitive ears for a minute. But I was like, I'm gonna write "fuck you, lady" on my mask.
Hey, now what?
Because I was like, just so mad. I was like, you don't
This
know.
is Ash Wednesday?
I was like, you don't know anything
This
about.
is on your way to Ash Wednesday Mass?
It wasn't on the way. It was before that happened. But I was like, you don't know anything about me. You don't know if I have a condition about that which would make me unable to wear a mask. But you don't care. Like, you're just enforcing the rule, blanket statement, not approaching me and saying, hey, why aren't you wearing a mask?
It's the one size fits all. That reminds me of a couple things. Joe Biden was giving a national address the other day, and he said he thinks probably around Christmas we'll be able to stop wearing masks. Anyway, and then
what's funny about that, though? Is that funny because you think that that's a really long time from now, or is that funny because you think that that's never going to happen? Because I think it's more like that's never going to happen.
I don't think it's never going to happen. I think it's going to happen because people are just going to be like, that's it, it's over. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that happened in with the Spanish flu in 1918 in San Francisco. Remember, I think we had to talk about that, didn't we? A little bit. Did we address that?
I don't know if we talked about it on the show, but
at one point they had this masking initiative where everybody had to wear a mask, and if you weren't wearing a mask, you were liable to get arrested. And there were mass protests, and people just stopped wearing them and just refused to wear them. And it actually led to quite a spike in infections.
Okay, but Ed, my question is like,
but it's the same thing. I sent you that article the other day about the Pennsylvania is now having this push to revise their constitution to cut back on the governor's power to mandate that kind of stuff. It's kind of executive orders.
Yeah, it's about the governor's power to declare a state of emergency. Which basically means in a state of emergency, they can do whatever they want, which is obvious. And now they're like, this is ridiculous, because they said that there's been a state of emergency for like since sometime in 2018, because in 2018, they declared it a state of emergency because of the opioid crisis or something.
Yeah.
And they've extended it every single time since then. So they've been in a continuing.
Now they're talking about a state of a public health emergency because of gun violence again. They're wanting to bring that up. Did you hear that Joe Biden wants to ban AR-15s?
No, but that doesn't surprise me.
High capacity magazines.
Ban them meaning like a buyback, or banning meaning like you just can't sell them anymore?
I don't know if he's talking confiscation, but I mean, that's the next step.
Yeah, I mean,
first thing they do is make it illegal, with a grandfathering, and then
Yeah.
they start coming by and picking them up.
I
They
love
know
how,
what they are. We talked about why they license that stuff.
yeah, go back and watch our gun episode if you haven't, because we like, none of this is surprising to me at all. I don't read the news anymore, so I don't hear any of this stuff, but it's like,
Oh, okay.
none of that surprises me in the least. I'm surprised.
I overhear it because mom starts listening first thing in the morning. Before I drive off to work at 6:30, she's watching Morning Joe and yelling at Mika.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Every day it's the stupidest thing she's ever heard.
Right.
That's what
today, or stupidest thing you heard ever. I mean,
and that's exactly why I don't watch the news, because I have enough things that make me angry in my own building. I don't need to watch things that make me angry that happen everywhere else in the world. So.
Why be angry?
I get angry when my autonomy is infringed upon. This is why.
Okay, what are you gonna do about anger? Every emotion. I want to remind me later. I want to come back to that thing about masks and making us afraid of other people. But the basic part of emotions is they are supposed to drive motions.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Anger focuses you on something that you need to fix.
To act on.
Yes.
How are you going to act on it?
Here's how I'm acting on it. I'm first
I'm
of all, right now.
mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
Okay. When you said the thing about how, maybe we should just talk about this today, because we have
That's fine. We didn't have any topics.
Well, no, I have a topic. Interruptions, but we can talk about that tomorrow. I have a lot to say about interruptions, but
Pardon the interruption.
We can talk about that tomorrow. First of all, when you said the thing about Christmas, about wearing the masks until Christmas, you said you think that's ridiculous because you said eventually people are just going to stop doing it. And the way that people stopped doing it in 1918 was that they had these protests and stuff. But you also said that I should just listen and wear a mask. So it's like, if everyone is thinking, okay, just shut up and listen, it's not that big of a deal, just wear a mask, then it's never going to change. That is my subtle protest to the building, to be like,
okay,
50% of our residents are not wearing masks. 50% of us think that this is ridiculous enough to not wear a mask. So maybe if 99% of the people didn't wear a mask, they would probably not enforce the rule or change.
Well, and then but for your own mental health, for your own serenity, then you need to not give a crap when the lady yells at you for not wearing a mask.
I know
you
that.
have to just say, I'm sorry, I've got a mental disorder. I'm crazy that way. I can't wear a mask. It makes me feel claustrophobic, and it makes me feel kind of stabby. I get stabby when I have a mask.
I do get stabby when I'm
it triggers my inner Michael Myers. I just want to go all Halloween on people. So you wouldn't like me wearing a mask.
The thing about the doing it, so there's a difference. Like I told my dad last week, we didn't bring this up on the show, but last week a woman at the park harassed me about not wearing a mask.
Right.
And that, I did not give one crap about that woman, because that was just a random citizen. It was outside at the park. I was across the park from her. There's no reason for her to get upset about me not wearing a mask, except she wants a chance. And actually, if you are interested in this subject at all, watch the first 25 minutes of Joe Rogan's episode that he came out with last week with Michael Malice. They were talking about the COVID lockdown stuff, and Joe asked Michael, are you worried about like COVID? And he said, no, I'm worried about the COVID restrictions, about the lockdowns. That's the stuff that I'm worried about. And he said, all these people, he lives in New York City. He said he saw a guy on the subway, like an old guy on the subway, yelling at like a younger Asian man who was not wearing a mask, and he was screaming at him saying, "Why aren't you wearing a mask? Go back from where you came from." And he said, this is all these people who are like screaming at other people about wearing masks. It's just a way for them to assert dominance when they're usually a lower dominance individual in the broader society. That's what these people want to do. That woman who yelled
Virtue
at,
signaling.
yeah, that woman who yelled
I'm
at
more
me
virtuous than you are
Yes.
because I'm following the rules.
yeah,
So
no matter how
they're
dumb the
basically
rules are.
they're basically goody goodies,
Yeah.
stuck ups.
Yeah.
So why do you care? Why do you care what they say? How
but I was saying,
how can
I
you
don't,
emotionally detach and not get angry when they act that way? How can you just put it in their place? Can you pity them?
so that woman at the park, I was like, it made me a little uncomfortable in the moment, but it like, I wasn't angry at her. I was just like, wow, the way that
You were able to detach.
Yeah, and I was like, she has no power over me. She's just using me as a way to feel better about herself. And
Yeah.
the way that she was treating her kids was like, wow, that makes me kind of sick to my stomach. I feel really bad for your kids. But I don't care about her. Like, she has no impact on my life. The reason it made me mad about what happened in my building is that I have to see that woman every day. And presumably she has some sort of control over, you know, the treatment I receive in my own building. I don't know. I don't know if like in my lease, if she has the power to just be like, you're kicked out or not. I don't know. That's the thing that made me worried is like, is this jeopardizing my ability to live where I live, and the fact that I have to see her all the time, and the fact that she possibly does have some power over me. That's the thing that made me nervous. I don't care about like general.
You need to do a cost benefit analysis. Is it worthwhile to continue to wear a mask if that's the cost of that's the price of admission? Is that worthwhile? Or do you want to say, you know what? If they kick me out, I didn't want to live here anyway. This place is filthy.
And I don't want to live here anyway, but
I know. That's probably what makes you really mad. It's like,
exactly.
I got to wear this mask in order to live here, and I don't really want to live here.
As somebody, so we have this app for all the residents of like our community, because it's a huge community. And somebody just posted in it today, and they were like, thanks to whoever let their dog take a dump in the stairwell and never cleaned it up. Like, glad you want to have, like, glad you're trying to make this place a better place to live. It's like, yeah, this place is disgusting. I hate living here. Like, I have not liked living here from the beginning.
It made the stairwell more interesting, didn't it?
But my husband's applying for jobs. We're hopefully going to be moving in the next 6 months. So it's kind of like, do I really want to like take the effort to freak out about it,
to bring it to a head
and move somewhere just to have to move again in 6 months? Like, not really. I don't want this woman to make my life miserable, and it seems like she might have some power to make my life miserable. So it's like, that's why I said I went
you can always come back here. The Smoky Motel is still open. And
I said, like, that's why I said I'm gonna, at least for Lent, give it up for the people who are really suffering, because it seems like I talked about last time with suffering, it's like I can either choose to accept the suffering and try to make it meaningful. And once again, I'm not saying that I am suffering for having to wear a mask. It's a suffering to my soul.
It's minor, but yeah. sometimes those little burrs under the saddle are worse than the gut shots. Gut shots, we know what we got to deal with. It's those burrs under the saddle where it's like, why do I even have to deal with that?
It's a mental suffering of like, I am being forced to do something that I don't want to do for no logical reason. That's the suffering of it for me. So that's why I was like, I'm gonna give it up, because it seems like I'm probably going to have to just give in and do it either way. Yes, I could make a stink about it, but that would genuinely maybe endanger my family in the sense of like getting kicked out of our building.
It would inconvenience your family. I mean, nobody's going to kill you.
No. But like it would cause my family more suffering if we got kicked out and had to find somewhere else to live for 6 months and then move and whatever. That would cause some suffering to my family. So it's like, I'm going to voluntarily take up this suffering and try to make it meaningful, and just and pick up my cross and walk toward the hill, because it's like,
or rise above it. Just accept it, rise above it. Just say, okay, certain people feel the need to make an issue out of this. I feel sorry for them, that this is their meaning in life. If this is the extent of their meaning in life, man, are they pathetic.
Yeah.
So I feel sorry for them. I don't have to be angry at them. I have to pity them.
Yeah. I mean, I do. I pity
Pitying people makes it a lot easier to put up with them.
No,
if you look at them and you say, oh, how sad.
Yeah.
It's hard to stay mad at somebody when you're feeling like, this is all you got.
Well, and the people that I really pity, it's actually interesting because I was participated in a health summit this week. It was like an online health summit, and it was a lot of people who were I didn't end up watching a lot of it because I just didn't have time. It's been a busy week, but it was a lot about COVID and the COVID vaccine and the COVID lockdowns and stuff. One of the lectures, which I wanted to watch but I didn't get time to watch, was called like making children wear masks is abuse. Like it was saying that it's abusive to make children wear masks. And I was like, I want to watch that because I like.
You agree with that?
Is it physical abuse? No. Is it psychologically damaging to make children wear masks? I think so. And I see.
You sound like Sister Maria.
That's a thing that only you and I will get, but that's okay.
Some other folks might get it.
Maybe. But so I really do think it's not, once again, let's talk, you said you wanted to come back to the psychological damage of making people afraid of each other. And
yeah, which has been going on for decades. This is just the most recent iteration of it, but it's something that we look at other people, even people in our in-group, as being alien, because we've got too big a tribe right now, and we're diffuse. We don't have a good tribal identity. We have a very diffuse identity. We're Americans, but that doesn't necessarily mean we like each other, trust each other, think each other is competent, or
obviously,
or even good.
Yeah.
And that is why I see this ongoing tendency in popular culture to represent that alien but looks like us zombie
fascination.
That theme of zombies has just really taken over.
Yeah.
It really kind of started back a while ago and I believe it comes from urbanization, from the fact that a lot of us live in close proximity with other people that we have no connection with whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know their name. Yeah. They might live right next door. We can hear them when they use the toilet, but we don't know a thing about them.
Yeah.
And we don't, and we're gradually more and more not trusting them to be of the same human caliber as us, not trusting them to have a soul even.
Mm-hmm.
And so we look at other people as being dangerously alien. Yeah. Rather, lizard people, QAnon, crapola, all this conspiracy stuff stems from a basic alienation because we are no longer attached to almost anybody.
Yeah.
We're in a lonely crowd.
Yeah.
right now.
I share a wall with a woman who is very nice, but I don't know her name. I only see her like every once in a while. The only time I really ever talked to her was when there was a building fire alarm going off and we were all supposed to evacuate, but my kids were asleep. So I'm like, I'm just gonna stay in my building. And she was like, she didn't evacuate either because she is disabled. And so I think she has a hard time going all the way from the 7th floor down to the main floor. But she was like talking to the firefighters and whatever. And she was like, I came out and I was like, do you know what's going on? And she was like, yeah, I think it's just somebody saw smoke, but it doesn't seem like there's a fire. So it's okay. Like, I'll keep you updated. I was like, thanks. It's like, that's the only interaction we've ever had. We literally shared a wall for a year and a half. Like, it's crazy. And
it's sad and disturbing that there's that lack of human connection with people that we're that close to.
Yeah, my husband this is an even worse example. My husband had an apartment when we lived in Wisconsin. We were living apart because I was finishing school somewhere and he was finishing school somewhere else. He shared an apartment with this guy. They literally shared a kitchen and a bathroom. They never once spoke to each other. They lived there for a year. They shared a bathroom and a kitchen and they never spoke to each other once. He didn't even know his name. The only reason he knew his name is because they shared a mailbox and he saw his mail. Like, they literally never had an interaction.
This was like a dormitory.
It was just like they were living in an apartment building, but they got assigned, like, because it was an apartment where they had 2 different bedrooms. They shared a kitchen and a bathroom. It was the worst apartment. That apartment was actually worse than here. It was terrible. But yeah, they just got.
Why is it terrible? Because nobody has ownership of it. Nobody has accountability. Nobody knows anybody else. It's like the problems with public housing all the time.
Yeah.
You know, nobody has any ownership of it.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody takes any responsibility. You know.
Your mom.
You remembered Sugar Hill Gang?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know the message?
No.
Oh, there was a song called The Message, which was pretty intense. Early 1980s, about growing up in the projects. And it just basically lets you know how alienating that is.
Yeah. Your mom did mission work in North Dakota, South Dakota.
Right, with the Native Americans. Yeah.
Somewhere on like a Native American reservation where it was all like government provided housing because it was a reservation. And she said like these people would just trash the place because they didn't have any ownership of it.
And there was no consequences.
Yeah.
It's not like you're gonna lose your access.
Yeah.
So go ahead, don't wear a mask. You're not going to lose your access.
Well, and it's funny that you said, like, you know, we're Americans, but we don't trust each other. I don't know if you remember, this was like a while ago in one of our episodes, we brought up a statistic where it's like, it was like 20% of Democrats think that Republicans are like the greatest threat to America. And like 20% of Republicans think that Democrats are the greatest threat to America. It's like
and yet I'm the biggest sinner I know.
It's like not only do we not trust each other, we actively think of each other as enemies. Like that is
right.
And that's the thing that.
And you know why that's occurred psychologically? I'm taking a page out of Jordan Peterson's book here. We don't have external enemies anymore. We don't have external threats.
Yeah.
But rather than deal with ourselves, we want to look at other people as being the problem.
Because God forbid we look at our own failings and how we are not getting closer to the ideal.
And say, how can I make things better?
Yeah.
It's much less stressful for me to say, look at how all those people are making things worse.
Okay, so
rather than how can I make things better?
yeah, tomorrow, I think, hopefully tomorrow we will film. So we're filming on a weird day. Usually my dad has work today, but it got canceled because of the weather, because it's extremely bad weather today. And if you're in Texas and watching this,
God bless you.
yeah, I hope that you get power returned.
Hopefully you're not in the midst of a rolling blackout and a freeze out.
Yeah.
Because those guys aren't ready for this kind of cold.
Yeah, we are somewhat prepared, because we grew up in the Great White North, as we've said.
Well, and it's not unheard of for it to get chilly here.
Yeah.
It's pretty unheard of for it to get that cold in Texas, I think.
Yeah. I saw a chart on that. Those charter emails that I get are really cool. You should sign up for them if you haven't. It said that the last time it got this cold was like 1933 in Texas, and before that it was like 1905. So obviously they said it's a once in a generation thing. I was gonna say so tomorrow hopefully we can record another episode. I really want to make an episode all about interruptions based on this story, Leaf by Niggle, which is by J.R.R. Tolkien. I want to basically read the whole thing because it's not that long. It's only 10 pages, and talk about it. But the part of the story is like he has this neighbor, which we'll talk way more about the neighbor tomorrow. But it's funny because it says like the neighbor always wanted to come over and like make critical remarks about his garden. And it's just funny because you were saying like, yeah, it's way easier to
way easier to point fingers than it is to take responsibility.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, it's interesting that you're talking about Tolkien. Let me riff on that for a second.
Sure, of course.
I was looking at these. You know how you've talked a few times about how you've got like a sanguine personality, or your husband does, or whatever.
Melancholic, yeah.
But yeah, these different humors that you talked about.
Yeah.
Temperaments.
Yeah, the temperaments.
I was looking up some stuff this week. There was the different theories of personality, like these traits, because Jordan Peterson said something about in one of his things about, oh yeah, taking psychedelic drugs actually had a sustained effect on the trait of openness. That people had a one standard deviation higher rating in openness after taking some psychedelic drugs.
Yeah.
Which he said was, it's kind of amazing. You just don't see that kind of lasting effect with a single dose of any medication.
And it's also very hard. Jordan Peterson talks a lot about personality, and I'll link his quiz called Understand Myself, where you can take a Big 5 trait analysis test, and it'll
That's
tell
what I was going to talk about, the Big 5. The ocean or canoe.
Yeah, so he talks a lot about the Big 5 because he says that's the most kind of scientifically proven way of understanding personality.
Yeah, it's the most accepted, although there's another one that's vying with it now that's like the Big 5+1, which has like an honesty scale to it. It's like, are you honest? Are you pro-social? Which really isn't in that other one.
Yeah.
Although it would probably be subsumed somewhat under like neuroticism and stuff.
Yeah. But he talks about how it is very hard to change personality. Like that's actually why the Big 5 is considered scientifically reliable, because you can take it again and again and again, and you will get very similar results. But so for something to change your personality in that dramatic of a way, to say you take something one time and it increases a factor of your personality, is like a really big deal if you don't know much about personality tests.
Right. He was really pretty pro psychedelics.
Well, he's talked about psychedelics a lot, and he says like, beware of unearned wisdom. Like
He
you
did
should,
say, yes, he did say that.
you like psychedelics can be a way to gain access to knowledge, but you need to be really careful about that.
It might blow your mind. You might not be ready to face the truth.
I wouldn't say he's either pro or anti psychedelics, but I do think he's probably pro testing of psychedelics. Like we have very extreme standards for, like, we've had a lot of tamping down of testing to see the kind of positive and negative effects that psychedelics can have in like a laboratory setting. And I mean, there's a lot of research coming out about people who have had terminal diagnoses who take stuff like mushrooms
He was
or
talking about Aldous Huxley, that
yeah.
Aldous Huxley took LSD on his deathbed
Mm-hmm.
to help him to deal with an openness to the transition he was going through.
There's been studies where like people who have terminal cancer diagnoses will take, I don't think it's usually like LSD, I think it's usually something like mushrooms, but they'll
Yeah,
take
psilocybin, in my experience, psilocybin was um, a more organic kind of experience.
I mean, it grows in the ground. Like it's something that's
But I just mean from the
yeah,
experience of it, it's got a slower onset, a
yeah,
slower offset, and it's less likely to generate some of that kind of paranoia and bad trip
yeah.
that some of the other stuff does. Anyway,
But I was gonna say
so
people,
he
but
was
people
talking
who
about
take
that.
those, but people who take those things, the scientific studies have shown that after that, they're much more able to accept the fact that they're gonna die and like that's okay. They've kind of come to terms with that and being like, I'm not so. They talk a lot. People who are really into the psychedelic world talk about like kind of that egoism, the letting
Right.
go of the ego. It's like when you take psilocybin, you kind of have a letting go of the ego, and you start to realize like, I am part of this vast network of life, and like, if I'm not inhabiting this mortal body anymore, like that's okay, and I can
Right.
like let go of that. Yeah. So what were you gonna say?
So I was going to say, yeah, okay. So I was looking at this personality stuff because he mentioned, oh, and at one point, I don't know if you knew this about me, but when I was graduating from college, I was looking at different programs to go into because I didn't want to work.
How
I
can
don't
I
know. You
prolong
probably knew that about me, but you didn't know what programs I was looking into. And one of them was a psychology of personality program. They actually had a graduate program in that at the University of Michigan. And one of my professors was like, "You'd be really good at that. You seem to have a knack for that kind of stuff." And so I was really thinking about that. And I've been interested in personality. I know it's hard to change personality, that there's certain things that are kind of traits
Yeah.
that aren't just states that come and go. They're
Mhm.
traits that seem to persist.
Yeah.
That openness, to have that change with a single dose of a psychedelic, only if you had the experience, though. It didn't matter what the dose was, it mattered what the experience was.
Mm.
Kind of interesting that it's not a chemical effect, it's an experiential effect.
Yeah.
It's like a therapeutic process that occurs, like a head shrinking,
Yeah.
like a ego dissolution.
Yeah.
It's like get over yourself.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it helps you to get over yourself, but it can also make you lose yourself.
Mhm.
We've had people in our family who
Yes.
lost their minds and
Yep.
have been useless. Sorry, but
Yeah. I've actually,
let me not say useless, dysfunctional
yeah.
for the rest of their lives
Yeah.
because of exposure to that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's dangerous.
It's not
But
something to mess around with. I've never done it, partly because when I was getting into high school, I had friends who were interested in doing drugs, but I was like, from the time of 5th grade on, I realized I have a very hard time with mood regulation, and I have a kind of a depressive tendency. And I also have been pretty smart, quote unquote, in terms of like doing well academically my whole life. And I was really truly the biggest factor for me in never doing drugs was that I was truly afraid of, like, if I do something, I'm afraid that those depressive tendencies can get worse, because if you do any research on marijuana use at all, you'll know that marijuana use, like habitual marijuana use, people will say you can't get addicted to marijuana, but any habitual drug use, especially marijuana, can mess with your serotonin and dopamine and like and mess with your ability to feel happiness when you're not taking marijuana. So I did not.
That can be a long-term effect.
Yeah, because your brain has some plasticity, but like if you mess with your brain enough, it's not gonna go back. And like, yeah, we have family members who have had serious, I would say, like disabilities because of messing with psychedelic.
I'd say, yeah.
So, because of messing with psychedelic substances.
They became zombies to a certain extent.
And it's like, I was afraid of the power of those things. It's not that I think it's not that I was like, it's a sin to do drugs, or it's like you're a bad person if you do drugs, but I was like, there is a power there that I don't want to mess with. Like,
it's a sin to break something that's working well.
Well, yeah. And to alter yourself to the state where you can no longer be responsible for your actions.
Right. Where you're not your best self anymore.
That's why it's wrong to get drunk. Like, it's not sin to drink, but it is wrong to get drunk if you can no longer be accountable to your own actions. Like, that is a sin, because you're putting yourself in a state where you are unable to be
you're not your best self.
Yeah.
You're not bringing glory to God.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so going back to where this all started out, you had mentioned Tolkien, and I had said, oh yeah, okay, that reminds me. Jordan Peterson said this thing about openness. So I looked at different personality things, and there are online all these personality things.
Yeah.
And I took there's a lot of them are just hokey bull. Yeah. But there's a Myers-Briggs online, which is like a 16 personality factor thing, which is kind of fun. I don't know how useful it is, and I don't know how, I don't know how good it is, but I took this online 50 question quiz, but it's a self
assessment
report thing.
Yeah.
So how much it depends on how well I really know myself.
Yeah.
And how much I'm willing to answer truthfully versus this is how I'd like to be.
Yeah.
So there's always that danger. But anyway, I took the quiz, and this page came up where it was like, have this picture of Frodo, is basically illustration of Frodo. And it's like, oh, here's some famous people who had this same personality. Alicia Keys, who I just think is adorable. J.R.R. Tolkien.
Interesting.
Then a couple other people, and then Frodo, and then some other of these literary things.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because they had Harry Potter characters that they somehow rated into here too.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just it's obviously just a gimmick.
Yeah.
But because there is no actual person to have a personality there.
Yeah.
There's just character traits that are represented in the books. But it does tell you that some of those books have such richly developed characters that you can actually probably identify personality traits and a personality style
it's so well written that they're so thoroughly consistent with like an actual human being that
Right.
you can be like, this is a person who has this personality. Like, yeah, which obviously they're not real. They're not real people, but like, I mean, the reason that's true. This is what Jordan Peterson would say, I think, and this is what I believe too, is that they're archetypal of,
Right.
you know,
They're
like,
just they're distillations
yeah,
of actual personal interactions, styles of interaction in the
yeah,
world, which is
yeah,
what a personality is.
yeah,
Personality is just a a consistent way of interacting with things and dealing with things in a particular way that's
yeah,
you know um, and it's nice that they've kind of boiled it down to 5 traits. That's kind
yeah.
of interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
You should take the big five sometime, and I've
we
taken
should we should do that together. Do an
yeah,
online, like we took
the
that
yeah.
political thing. We should take the
Maybe if we're like together sometime we could do that. That would be fun. Cause I've taken the big
and we should rate each other then too,
yeah,
because I do think there is a problem of self-report.
yeah, yeah,
How much am I really aware of the truth of my being? How much, um, and that's talked about in the Psalms. I think uh, I was listening to Father Mike read the Bible, and they talked about one Psalm. It's like, uh, you know, forgive me for my hidden faults. Forgive me for the things that I don't even know about myself,
yeah.
the ways that I'm failing that I'm not even allowing myself to be aware of.
To recognize. Yeah.
And that's true humility, when you're able to say, there's a lot of things about me that I probably just don't even know.
Yeah.
I can't, I can't make great claims for myself. I can't even judge myself because I don't know myself well.
Yeah.
You know? Uh, I'm working from the inside out. I don't know how I look from the outside a lot of times. I
Yeah.
get a little sense of it here when I get to watch myself on this, and I think, oh man, that guy's a dork. What is up with him? What's
He's constantly
Although
touching
I
his
was
ears.
looking at my eyebrows this morning. I think I ought to let them go completely white and have that go for the Pai Mei look. Remember in Kill Bill, the Pai
Yeah.
Mei? I love that guy. He
You
is so hardcore.
I think you'd have to grow your beard for a while to get to that.
Yeah, to get it down to being like, and my mustache where he
Yeah.
had it
Where it
like,
like goes down. Yeah.
and he would just like play with it, and it looked so enticing.
That's like the Dumbledore. Do you remember which Harry Potter character did it say you were? I'm really curious. Do you remember?
I don't remember.
All right.
I don't know that there were any Harry Potter characters that were like me.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. You should go on that Myers-Briggs and
I've taken like there's one called like 16 something where
16 personality factors. Yeah.
which it's just a Myers-Briggs, but it will give you like one call, like it'll give you each
It
person.
gives you these 4 letters.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Yeah.
There's one website where it each combination of those 4, each 16 has like a name to it.
Right.
And I think mine was
There
called,
was a name on it. I think it was Mediator.
yeah, okay. I think, let me look really quick.
It's like I'm like an INFI or something like that.
Okay.
I forget exactly. I didn't study it deeply. I was never into that kind of psychometric personality stuff. I always felt like that was kind of hokey. I felt
Yeah.
like the psychoanalytic personality stuff was more useful. But apparently the Myers-Briggs is actually based on some of the Jungian psychology,
Yeah.
which is has become for a while Jung was looked at as being the Fruit Loop of the psychoanalysts.
Yeah.
And Freud was looked at as being like the solid
Legit
guy
guy.
who did the science and the research and everything. But Jung has actually, I think, kind of eclipsed Freud in a lot of ways, as far as being more on the more of the popular accessibility of psychoanalysis.
I think he's getting more popular, especially because people like Jordan Peterson talk about him a lot. Like, I think,
Well, and I think people like Jordan Peterson talk about him a lot because he's got a richness that is that has taken a while for culture to really appreciate. When he first came out, Freud, when he first came out, was looked at as being, a maniac. And then
yeah,
a lot of his ideas got accepted into the mainstream, and that kind of paved the way for a lot of Jung's ideas to get more acceptable into the mainstream. Ideas of unconscious and potentially collective unconscious,
yeah,
which is something that Jordan Peterson's really into.
mhm,
Is how
yeah,
collective unconscious is basically physically determined in our brain structures. We are programmed to look for certain archetypal dangers, like he
yeah,
said, cats, birds, and snakes,
yeah, snakes, yeah,
and the worst would be like a cat, bird, snake, a sphinx, or
yeah,
a dragon.
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know a dragon has like a cat's face and a bird's wings
mhm,
and a snake's scales and
yeah,
slithery body, and it's like, man, that's a perfect combination of danger.
yeah,
That's like that's our idea of evil.
yeah.
uh, but there are no cats, birds, snakes anymore. Are dragons scary to anybody anymore? Now it's like Puff the Magic Dragon. Oh, dragons are cute. Dragons, unicorns.
Yeah,
There's a fun, legendary characters. That's not really what we're afraid of anymore. We're afraid of each other.
yeah,
And really, when it comes down to it, we're afraid of ourselves.
yeah.
And we just don't want to admit it.
We're
So it's
afraid of the dragons.
easier to
People
be
are,
afraid of other people than it is to be afraid of yourself and deal with yourself.
well, and like we're afraid of the dragons in our own mind, and we try so hard to distract ourselves so that we never have to confront those things. Like, I've been thinking about this a lot because Jordan Peterson, once again, has the self-authoring program, which is amazing. It's really good. It's hard work. Like, it is hard confronting some of that stuff, but it's really good. It took me like a year to do it because what he basically has you do is like divide your life up into kind of epochs or whatever, periods of time, and then
Chapters. Yeah.
talk about significant events that happened in those times, and you write out like those events, and so that you're able to learn the lessons, because like that's the point of memory. The point of memory is to remember things that happened so you can learn the lessons from that and not make the same mistake again.
Yeah.
And like this morning,
Not just live a Groundhog Day life
yeah.
where you're doing the same things over and over.
And like this morning, I woke up at like 4 a.m. and I had these two memories in my mind that were like very memories that like I couldn't stop thinking about. They just kept going and going and going and going. And I was like, there's obviously something there that like I need to flesh
They have
out.
something to say to me.
Yeah. And so I was like, I started a new note on my phone and wrote down like things to write out later. And I wrote down the two memories. And finally I was able to sleep after that because I was like, my brain knew like
You put them in their place.
And I said, like, I'm going to take some time to think about these things. It's just not going to be right now at 4 a.m. when I'm trying to sleep. Like,
Right.
I need to have some.
You oatmealed those.
Yeah, yeah, and like,
You set the bowl aside and let it cool off while you're
Yeah.
taking a nap.
Yeah. So I do think it's like really, and people, I mean, people are, once again, it's like I'm giving up my stupid video games that I play, whatever, like little games on my phone and on my computer. All that stuff is just, I used to, when I was in college, I've been thinking about too the ways that I've changed since I was in college. When I was in college, I never had moments of silence I was constantly distracting myself because I had a lot of stuff that I was not able to or ready to confront yet in my mind. And it's like I never walked anywhere without headphones in, listening to podcasts, distracting myself constantly, never had moments of silence. And the hardest moments were like those times in the shower where I was like alone for 5 minutes with my thoughts. And it's like, I didn't what
They come creeping
and
in.
every time it was like a bad experience. I hated it. And it's like finally after doing the self-authoring, it's like I really was able to work out some of that stuff. Obviously it's still there, hence this morning at 4 a.m. But it's like
it's going to continue to be there. It's an ongoing story. But we keep getting deeper into the story, and it keeps having more and more meaning. The more that you learn about yourself, the more free you are to move on. It's I was a physics major in college for a while,
in undergrad.
and there's this thing called the Heisenberg, the uncertainty principle. Which the basic idea of the uncertainty principle is you can know a position of a thing, or you can know the
speed at which it's moving,
momentum of a thing, what direction it's traveling and what speed it's going, but you can't know both at any given time. So if you nail down a position, that means that the direction it moves and the speed that it moves is now uncertain. And it's almost like emotionally that's true too. Once you get in touch with yourself, and once you really confront some of the things that you need to know about yourself, you free yourself to be able to then make different decisions about where you're going and how you're going. But until you take a look at yourself, you're like on this path that you don't even really understand. You don't know, you might know where you are, but you don't know where you're going. And you don't really have any choices about where you're going, because you're just kind of on a vector.
Yeah. It's kind of like how Jordan Peterson talks so much about chaos and order, and the difference between those things. It's like chaos is like all of the unknowns, right? And order is like all the things that I've explored. Like order is like all of that explored territory where I figured out where I am. I figured out what things are. I figured out that there's no snakes there. There's no cats, snake, birds, like whatever, like I know that that's taken care of. Order, like chaos is all the stuff that's like I had unexplored territory. But if you always sit
like the future or the past,
the
unconscious and undealt with past, and until that past gets dealt with, it's going to continue to be a wild card.
Parts of your personality are like things that you haven't figured out yet. But like if you always sit in order, you know where you are, but you're not moving anywhere. Right? Like you know where you are, but you're not going on that path. If you're always in chaos, like that's a scary place, because you don't know where you are. You know where you're moving, you know that you're moving around and you're being like shifted all over the place, but you're
not really learning anything because you're terrified.
You don't have grounding.
You don't have any structure for the experience to be able to integrate it into something. And so
that's why, like,
you have to get to a certain age before you can start to unpack some of these things. And that's when it comes back to you. Some people are in their 60s when all of a sudden they have flashbacks about, oh crap, I was abused as a kid, and I had repressed it, and I never dealt with it, and I never, but now that I let myself realize that truth, it's clear, and it's clear how it's had an impact on me for all these years without me ever recognizing that it was having an impact. It's like a wind that was blowing and a sail that was up that I never even knew was there, and it was pushing me in certain directions, and keeping me from being able to trust, and keeping me from being able to love, and keeping me from being able to work and to accept, you know, authority or accept responsibility. And all those different things come into play, and it becomes really it's kind of horrifying how little we know about ourselves, but it's also pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should share this, but I will.
I can cut it
Like,
out if you change your mind.
Joe Biden, it's my openness. Joe Biden was saying the other day, I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to, which I thought was kind of charming of him to do that. Say, I'm going to put it out there. What the heck?
That's his dementia.
When you get to be an old guy, you just throw stuff out there, I guess.
Yeah, his lack of censorship, self-censorship.
But speaking of how little we know about our minds and the capability of our minds, one time I did take mushrooms, the psilocybin mushrooms, and I was living with a fellow who a couple of different young people, and he had taken mushrooms too. We couldn't sleep. We were too, you know, geeked up, too open. Yeah, you know, couldn't sleep. And so we decided to go to the grocery store at like 2:30 in the morning.
Okay.
I was completely useless. I was high as a kite. I could not speak a sentence. I was in the midst of, I felt like I was in the midst of chaos.
Seems like a bad place to be on a mushroom trip. Like, I've heard that if you take.
But I was with a friend, and I was just kind of following him.
Yeah.
I was like a puppy. I was seriously not. I didn't have a lot of agency at that point. My ego was blown. However, now this is where it becomes interesting and almost kind of terrifying.
Okay.
So this was at a store in Iron Mountain. You're familiar with it. You've been there. And we were walking around, putting things in the cart, and I wasn't consciously paying attention to anything.
Okay.
But I was unconsciously paying attention to everything.
Okay.
We got up to the front to check out, and we had probably, 40 items in the cart.
Okay.
Different stuff. And the girl at the checkout says, "I'm sorry, but our scanner's down. We can't check you out. We don't know the prices." And I said, "I know the prices. I knew the price of every single item in that cart."
Wow.
I hadn't consciously registered any of them.
Yeah.
But I had unconsciously registered all of them. And I was able to, at that point, I was able to recall all of them.
Wow, that is crazy.
It still blows my mind. It still makes me tingle when I think about that.
Yeah.
Like our brains are so capable of registering information that we are not even aware of, that it's just really mind-blowing. You know how they talk about we only use like 10% of our brain?
Yeah.
I truly believe that's true.
Yeah.
We are registering a lot of information all the time that either seems not pertinent, and that our ego just kind of filters out, says that's not part of the problem.
Because it's explored territory most of the time. We think we just categorize that as like, okay, that's a tree. I know what
doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Not a problem. Not a snake. Not a cat. Not a bird.
Yeah. Exactly.
Not somebody that I want to be friends with. So just
moving on.
Swiping right.
Well, it's like that. That's why Jordan Peterson says like kids are so amazing, like to be around, because kids, everything for
They
kids.
don't have that
Yeah.
ego filter
Yeah.
as much as we do. So
Well,
they come up
yeah.
with things, they live in a dream a
Yeah.
lot of times.
And everything for them is like unexplored territory. It's like, one of the, like, I have a terrible memory, but one of the moments that I hope I will never forget until I die is we went to Disney World with my oldest daughter. And she was 2.5 at the time or something. And we went on this ride, the Frozen ride.
Oh yeah.
And there's this part, and like
In
the
Epcot at the
yeah,
on the
yeah.
Norway thing, yeah.
And it's the same. It's like the same ride as like the Maelstrom, what the Maelstrom used to be. So it's
Right.
like, you know, I've done this ride
A
before.
little less intense though, I think.
Yeah. It's like I've basically done this exact ride before. I know what it is. But there's this part where Marshmallow, the big like monster thing, like roars, and then you go down this little like chute, and like I will never forget her face seeing that, because it was pure awe. It was pure delight and awe, and like just it made me cry, like sitting there, and it was like just watching her experience that, and like the pure joy and just unfiltered joy was incredible. And it's like kids do that all the time. Like my there's a really good book called The Read Aloud Family by this woman, Sarah Mackenzie, who's really big into reading aloud and like the benefits of reading aloud to your kids. But she talks about like finding delight in the little moments. And she said that one time she took her kids to the zoo, and she was super excited to show them, I think it was like the walrus or something, or the seal, like some animal. And she said it was the perfect moment where the seal was like right in front of them, and it was like a perfect display of the seal. And she was like, wow, look at that. And her kid was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And she realized her kid was looking at a bug on the ground. Like, and her kid did not care about like the magnificent display in front of her. It saw a bug on the ground, and it was like, this is so cool. This is the coolest moment ever. And it's like, kids see, like, we see bugs and we're like, okay, we've seen 10 million bugs in our life. We just move on. And it's like, that kid saw that bug and was like, this is so cool. And it's like, kids have everything is unexplored territory so for them, it's like everything is mind blowing, and they can make you see that too. And that's like the payment that kids give you just for being with them.
And that's kind of like the whole Zen program of trying to become the uncarved block, trying to not judge things, just accept things as they are, just look at things, you know, like the Lotus Sutra or whatever, where the Buddha didn't say a thing, he just held out that flower. And the more you looked at it, the more you realized this is like truly amazing. This is like
all the universe is contained,
cosmically significant right here, and usually we just walk right past it.
Yeah.
You know, I remember one time when I was in Ann Arbor, I was lying in the front yard reading some books, and this young mom and this kind of toddler age kid were walking past on the sidewalk, and this kid noticed like a mushroom, a little tiny mushroom, like growing at the side of the sidewalk, and he was like, wow, look at this, Mom. And Mom was like, come on, we gotta go. So we lose that childlike awe. We lose that ability to really respond to what a wonderful world.
Yeah.
You know,
I was just gonna say that same thing. It's funny, I used to be a part of this program called Hike It Baby, where people get together and go on hikes that are like child-led. And it can be really hard for the parents, because the parents will be like, okay, let's go on this trail. Let's do the trail.
They have an agenda. They have
And the kids literally will go, if you let a kid go on their own, they'll go about 25 feet because in 2 hours, because and this kind of drives me crazy about my youngest daughter. because she's a competent walker. She's been walking for like a year now. So she's a great walker, but she's still little. And when we walk anywhere, she goes so slowly. She has to say hi to every person. She has to point out every dog that we see. She's always looking at and she's like, the moon, where's the moon? Like in the middle of the day, she doesn't care. She's always looking for stuff. And like, I'm often late for things, so I'm usually like, come on, we gotta go. But like that's why I like our forest meetups. I have like forest meetups with our friends every week where it's like we just go and the kids can do whatever they want, because then it's like you have the total freedom to, if you want to look at one rock, which she loves rocks, if you want to look at one rock for 25 minutes, go ahead. We have no agenda. It's just like you can do whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Have we talked long enough?
Yeah, I think we've exhausted the. But I'm glad where we got to in this.
Yeah.
It was I felt like we got to a part where we were talking about things that really matter. So
Yeah.
You know, even though we started off with a plan. I'm not sure we ever. I think the interruptions that we had were probably better.
Yeah.
You know, and that's allowing God. You know, they always talk about, if you want to make God laugh, tell him what your plans are.
Yeah.
You know, you just allow God to just meditate and let your mind be where it needs to be.
Yeah.
Not where you think it should be. Don't should on yourself. You know, don't must.
But I was gonna,
just kind of let it unfold. And a lot of times God will take you right where you need to be. It's interesting that you were mentioning that Frozen ride, because the other day I was going through I was pulling stuff out of I'm selling the cars. I don't know. I think I told you that.
Yeah.
We got 3 cars that I don't like, and so I'm gonna sell them. But I pulled out a penny, and it was one of those pennies that we had gotten from Disneyland.
Oh, okay.
And it had the Norway thing on it. And
Nice.
And I showed Luke, and he said, "Oh yeah, that's where they have the Frozen ride."
Yeah.
So it's weird because we were talking about the Frozen ride 2 days ago.
Yeah, I think about that.
I hadn't thought about the Frozen ride in years.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you hear about it twice in a couple days.
Yeah.
Like, these are God incidences.
Well, it's
God is telling you that everything has a pattern, that everything matters, that everything, that he cares about everything.
Yeah.
And that we just can't always see how he cares about everything, but he does.
Yeah. I did the 33 days to morning glory consecration to Mary the very first day of the year. So every morning, the first thing I do in the morning, or I try to do the first thing I do in the morning, is to do the consecration prayer and reconsecrate myself to Mary. But there's a line in it that says, "Let me be a fit instrument in your immaculate and merciful hands for bringing the greatest possible glory to God." It's like an instrument isn't something that has a will, that is directing itself. An instrument is something that is being used. Like, I want God to use me to bring about the greatest possible glory. And that's like, hopefully
lead me, Lord, lead me, Lord.
Yeah. So I do want to talk about this story. I think it's amazing. I took a million notes on it. So let's talk about it tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Yeah. What do I even title this episode? We talked about masks. We talked about mushrooms. We talked about ego dissolution.
Personality.
Chaos and order and personality.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll figure it out. But I think this is a fun topic. I'm glad we dialogued about my mask thing, because I'm over it. This was
a free form jazz improvisation.
As you say, free association. This was just a conversation. So yeah.
Remember in Spinal Tap when they were like, did you watch Spinal Tap?
Yeah.
Recently? Did we watch it all together?
I haven't watched it recently, but I've seen it multiple times.
Oh, okay. Your sister was here and we watched it. But they the band falls apart and they don't know what they're going to do. And so they say, well, let's just have a free-form jazz improvisation. And it's
Yeah.
terrible.
I love Norm Macdonald. He's my favorite comedian. And
Yeah.
there's a quote. I watched like all his YouTube clips a million times, but there's a quote where he was on one of those morning shows where, you know, he's on promoting something. Those are the worst ever. But he was on and they were talking about stuff and the lady's like, there's a real stream of consciousness thing going on here. And he's like, yeah, it's called a conversation. And that's what this was.
That's where we got to.
It was a conversation. So anyway, I hope you gleaned something from our conversation. And
we did, and we enjoyed ourselves.
Yeah. And we will, I don't know when this will be put out, but we'll probably put out 2 episodes this week. So we'll see you soon. And
all right. God bless everybody. Take care.
All right. Bye.